Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today, March 23rd of 2022, to discuss the American Dream. That's a big statement. What is the American Dream? What does it matter? Especially as we look at America going forward, as we look at the world and how it is changing. Does the American Dream exist? And do you believe you can have a part of that? We're going to ask that question and look into it. But first, we do want to mention that if you are new to the channel, we want to welcome you and thank you for viewing. We want you to know that we do long-form political commentary, and every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out on all the social media that the internet overlords will allow to be able to hear your voice, to hear you speak. Because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in your right to be able to speak about the issues that matter, no matter where you are in the world. So even if your government does not agree, we want you to join us every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to provide us your texts, your chats, and your phone calls to tell us what you think. So the American Dream. What is the American Dream? I mean, that's a really big question. And it's a really difficult question. It's a question that I don't know anyone can nail it down to any one thing. Is it owning your own home? Is it being able to have freedom to be able to speak? Is it being able to have a high-paying job, or to be able to have a family with as many children as you want? These are really interesting questions because depending on where you are in the world, you can't get a home. You may only be able to get an apartment, either because you can't afford a home or there isn't enough land. You may be in a nation like China where you're not able to have a family and have as many children as you want, or even to have children of whatever gender that you want. As we see, China has selections on that and limitations on that. In many nations around the world, you can't speak freely or express yourself freely. We've seen that in Australia, we've seen that in New Zealand. Most recently, we've seen that in Canada, where Justin Trudeau punished fellow Canadians for daring to oppose his point of view on draconian vaccine mandate laws. So, being in America and having all of that available, and the ability to move up in status, to be able to go from being poor to being rich, is something that everyone in America can do. And we've seen it many times. Warren Buffett wasn't always the most richest man in the world. Neither was Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. There are many people who have built their wealth in America that started from nothing and came to greatness. Oprah, another great example. So those are the megastars, though. What for the average American? What does the average American think? In fact, that is the question that brings us to today. It's a question that a YouGov poll released today is addressing. And their question is, today they would like to hear your thoughts on the American Dream. They define this as the American Dream is the belief that anyone in America, regardless of where they were born or what class they were born into, can attain their own version of success in a society where upward mobility is possible for everyone. The American Dream is generally thought to be achieved through sacrifice, risk-taking, and hard work rather than chance. We're going to address this poll point by point and to give some insight on the questions and the way the questions are being asked, as well as the answers that we see. But before we do that, we have to understand, where does America generally stand? That's a tough question, but I think we can find answers in other polls. In particular, there is the Gallup poll that came out on August 13th of 2018. So 4 years ago. And Democrats were more positive about socialism than capitalism. And I think that's important. So at the time, according to Gallup poll, 47% of Democrats viewed capitalism positively, down from 56% in 2016. 57% of Democrats viewed socialism positively, which was little change from 2010. So essentially, a little more than half of Democrats believe and have consistently believed that socialism is the thing. Why is that important? Well, we believe this is important when we look at this in looking at 2010, 2012, 2016, and 2018. That's almost entirely President Obama. And President Obama, with Vice President Biden, promised to transform America. And we believe that he meant that transformation not simply as transforming America from a manufacturing nation into a service economy, which we can see some of the difficulties that brings at this moment, but transforming America from a more free nation into a socialist nation. And we are seeing that transition even today as Joe Biden picks up the mantle from Barack Obama and continues that march towards transformation. Now we can see, as presented by Gallup News, that in 2010, the positive view of socialism by Democrats was at 53%. By the end of the Obama term on this, as we can see here, in 2016, it was 58%. So that's a pretty dramatic increase. Meanwhile, Democrats felt very bad about capitalism, going from 56% at the end of the Obama realm to 47%. That's an interesting thing. So what can we take from that? It would seem that Democrats, who maintain the majority of positions in teaching and in higher education and our colleges, have been pushing this ideology of progressivism, of democratic socialism, and under the Obama administration, it seemed to be reaching a peak. And that is a transformation of everything about America. So that has continued. Those Americans in 2010 are still the Americans that are with us today in 2022. And we should also take into account something else that's important. Looking at the Gallup, again, looking at the Gallup poll, which came out on July 17th of 2019, 1 year after the poll on socialism, where Democrats are favoring socialism. And when we look at this poll, which is a poll to see most Americans see the American dream as achievable. Now, in that poll, nearly 3 in 10 viewed the American dream as unattainable. Only 30%, 29% of Americans think you can't achieve the American dream. Republicans are more likely to say that the American dream is achievable. These are the very same Democrats that are saying they want socialism, not capitalism. Now, we thought this was pretty interesting. And as we can see here, in the article, Democrats are less likely to view the American dream as achievable. And we see that in 2009, under the first year of the Obama administration, there were 68% of Democrats that believed they would be able to achieve the American dream. In 2019, that has gone down to 60%. So as President Trump transitioned America away from the policies of the Barack Obama and Joe Biden administration, as he transformed America to an America First policy rather than going around the world and apologizing for America being the great nation that it is, Democrats took that negatively. Meanwhile, independents remained about the same in their view, and Republicans became more encouraged and believed it was more possible to achieve the American dream. Although, we have to say, 2/3 of independents and 88% of Republicans believe you can achieve the American dream. And that's very similar to the numbers when President Obama came in with 67% of independents and 81% of Republicans. So we can see independents and Republicans have a strong view of America and the possibility, the potential in America. Less so with Democrats, and increasingly less so as America became a more positive image in American politics under the Trump administration. That leads us to the last question, and this comes from, or the last background, which comes from December 6th of 2021, just 4 months ago. Socialism, capitalism, ratings in U.S. unchanged. So let's see. Capitalism is viewed positively by 60% of Americans, 38% socialism. Positive image for big business, and Democrats continue to view socialism more positively than capitalism. Even though the majority of Americans, but that would be the independents and the Republicans, who see the potential in America to live the American dream and reject socialism, they're the ones who are supporting this, and Democrats aren't. That's not my saying so. Again, we're going to the poll, and I want to show you this so you can see it for yourself. The positive image of capitalism by political party. Now, this is for Republicans in the red, Democrats in the blue, and what we see is 72% of Republicans and those who lean Republican have a positive image of capitalism. It is virtually unchanged from 2010 all the way to 2021. Democrats also had very little change, but there was some change. They went and decreased to 52% by 2021. Looking at socialism, though, we see the exact opposite. What we see, and again, Republicans are in the red, Democrats are in the blue, and we see that from the time of the Obama administration going forward to today, Democrats have become more interested and more supportive of socialism than where we have seen Republicans and those who lean Republican become less interested in socialism. Now, when we look at that, we have a very interesting point of view. If the American dream is to be considered the ability of an individual to break through and have upward mobility, regardless of what level, what class of American citizen you may be, whether it's social or economic, it doesn't matter, that you have the ability to move forward in life, to move upwards in life, that you have the ability to gain wealth, to gain housing, to achieve your goals. How do you do that in a socialist country where that isn't allowed, where you are given what you need and not more than that, to each what they need? One of the key tenets of socialism, which would defeat the American dream. It's a scary prospect. And I do want to keep in mind and make sure that we have it understood. So in looking at the time period that we've just been discussing, the Obama administration, the Trump administration, and now Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we look at two things: the unemployment level and the real gross domestic product. And overall, we have seen that this has been essentially positive to flat, with the exception, of course, of the pandemic. But separate of that, America has been trending and consistently doing pretty well. There has been generally a growth in GDP, which also reflects a growth in the value that Americans have as a nation, and a general improvement in unemployment, minus the most recent catastrophe. Okay, so now that we have that background set, let's take a look at this daily YouGov poll. So their first question to us is, do you think the American dream is more of a reality or a myth? And we know that looking at the data from Gallup, the majority of independents and Republicans have already stated consistently they believe it, that it is real, and that it is attainable. And we say it is a reality. Well, according to the poll, 47% of the people taking the YouGov poll say that it is a reality. 48% say it's not. 4% aren't sure. Now that stands out to me because we have data. We have repeat data for many years. So that the YouGov poll is saying something so out of skew with what we have seen consistently. In the 70 percentile, somewhere between 2/3 and 75% of Americans have consistently said they believe in the American dream to some form or extent. And here on YouGov, it's nearly a 50-50 split. Something seems off about this poll. Something seems wrong in the data to have such a major discrepancy. But let's go on, because this isn't an official poll, but we'll go on. Compared to other Western countries, do you think it's easier or more difficult to achieve success in America? I would say it's easier. According to the data that we can see across this nation and for the history of the last 75 years, there are millions of individuals from every country in the world lining up to come into America, legally and illegally. That is a fact. There are millions who have come to the United States, tens of millions illegally, and millions online to become American citizens legally. And when asked about this, we have consistently seen in polling over decades that the answer is because they have the potential to have a better life, that it is easier and better in the United States than to be in their home countries, whether that would be Cuba or Venezuela, North Korea, China, but even nations in the second and first world like France or England, the United Kingdom or Germany and other nations around the world. So the results were that 45% agree with us that it is easier in America than it is in other nations around the world. And only 30% though, said it's more difficult in America than anywhere else in the world, which seems to fly in the face of the fact that while millions are trying to get into America, barely tens of thousands, barely less than 100,000 people from the data that we have seen are trying to leave America to become citizens anywhere else in the world, combined. That says a lot. So it makes us think somewhat suspect, again, on this poll, that we're seeing 30%, such a large number, are saying America is more difficult than any other nation. Fair enough. Which of the following do you associate with the American dream? You get to choose 3 choices. We chose success, home ownership, and freedom. But here's what the majority of people taking the poll at the time that we took it said. 77% said financial stability is associated with the American dream. Fair enough. Many people do find that America is one of the most financially stable nations in the world. And our wealth, the dollar, is the currency of the world. So to say it's financially stable would be an accurate statement, and I could see that. Homeownership, again, something that virtually anyone in America can do. As long as they save, they have the funds, they can go out and buy property. Large amounts of property or small amounts of property, Americans can own property as they wish, provided they have the funds or are able to get the funds, even with loans for those funds. And 64% agree with us that home ownership is part of the definition of the American dream. 42% would say freedom. Now that's a little scary. Only 42%, not even half of the individuals taking this YouGov poll say freedom is about American dream. Now, that's interesting because America is defined by the Constitution. It is defined by the clause, the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The First Amendment, freedom of speech and religion. The Second Amendment, the freedom to be able to defend yourself, to be armed and to defend yourself from all threats, domestic and foreign. So that's a lot of freedom. Things that you do not get in any other place in the world. Nowhere else in the world do you have a pursuit of happiness. And nowhere else in the world do you have the same degree of freedom of speech to question governments, elected officials, news media, or anything else. You don't have that in the rest of the world. If you go to England right now and say the wrong thing, you will be jailed, you will be fined. That's true in Canada as well. And they're some of the most free nations in the world, just not as free as the United States. So to see that freedom, only 42% believe that the American dream is connected to freedom is shocking and makes me question about the American education system. But let's go on. 32% equal opportunity. Again, not outcome, but opportunity. That many people believe that in coming to the United States, man, woman, white, black, Hispanic, whatever you might be, you have the opportunity through hard work and sacrifice to be able to succeed, as we have seen many people do. Many people come from overseas, and it's often made a joke, but it's true that many individuals from India will come to the United States, and do they own franchises? They do, and they are very successful at that. Families working together to make sure that each of them are able to work in a business, build up that business, and then use that success to then leverage for another member of their family to gain success as well. They've done it as a very successful system, and I am happy for them to do so. More people should follow that same kind of pattern, that ideology, but it just shows us that success is not tied to race or gender. It is open to everyone if they have the hard work ethic. Education. 22% of people believe that education is part of the American dream, which is interesting, maybe as a component to provide you with the ability to have success and to have financial success, perhaps, but it doesn't seem to be as important a component, although 22% of those taking this YouGov poll think education is. Then again, the United States has one of the most robust free education systems in the world. So we could say that. How about success itself? 21% agree. Having a partner and children, 21%. Again, in much of the world, especially in places like China, you don't get to choose. In India, you often do not get to choose whom you wish to be your life partner. And many people in China do not get to have children, nor do they get to have female children. That's just the way that their government works. That's not a freedom that you have. And for those who may be LGBTQ plus whatever, then they don't have a freedom to have their partners in many parts of the world, like in the Middle East, where they will be stoned to death or thrown off of buildings, as we have seen the Taliban, ISIS, and Al-Qaeda do on a regular basis, because freedom to express yourself and to love whomever you love does not exist in other parts of the world, but it does exist and is protected in the United States under capitalism, under democracy, under the freedom that we have today, which is being transformed, as we have seen under Barack Obama and now under Biden and Harris. But wealth, something that many people might have thought would be a big part of the American dream, it isn't. Only 10% believe wealth is a part and a defining part component of the American dream. Wealth isn't the same thing as financial stability. Wealth may or may not get you a home, but that's not a requirement, nor is it required for freedom. Wealth is something completely different, and that's not part of the American dream. People aren't dreaming to become billionaires. People are dreaming to be able to have their own home, and they can. That's an interesting difference there. Let's go on. The poll goes on to say, how accurately do you think media such as TV, movies, and books portray the American dream? We said somewhat accurately, depending on which TV, movies, and books that you happen to be watching. And the answer for most people we see, and this is interesting because suddenly the poll shifts from the highest number to a different ratio altogether, where we see the answer in the survey is 2% very accurately. Why is that the first response when it has the least number of people? I don't understand. Are they trying to say that this is something you shouldn't go after? That they're presenting you the least largest number to tell you don't believe in that? I don't know. 22% said somewhat accurately, while 45% felt that it was not very accurate, that movies, TVs, and books do not portray the American dream. And again, depending on what you're looking at, if you're watching Batwoman as an example, if you're watching Supergirl as an example, if you're watching some of the CW types of movies, these politically motivated and politically infused movies and television shows, well, I can understand why you would say that's not reality, because it isn't. Not even as a caricature of reality. The next question would be, how attainable, if at all, do you think the American dream is for most people living in the United States? Now, notice it didn't say most citizens living in the United States. That's an interesting departure because the poll is asking about illegal aliens as well as legal aliens in the United States, people who have been asked and allowed to be in the United States, as well as American citizens. So there's a bit of unfairness in this poll because it's asking criminals, and illegal aliens are, by definition, criminals. So they're asking criminals whether they think if a criminal is able to attain the American dream, that can illegal aliens who are criminals, who are evading prosecution of the law every day that they are in America, can they buy property in America? Which, no, they can't, and they shouldn't. That they are able to attain wealth, that they are able to get education. They shouldn't, because they're criminals. But let's see what the poll says. 23% believe it is very attainable for most people living in the United States to attain the American dream. Now, obviously, some portion of the people that may be answering this poll or looking at the poll question will say, well, it's not possible for illegal aliens because they are criminals. And therefore, most of the things that people would be looking for as a definition of American dream are beyond them because they are criminals. And therefore, they can't own property in the United States. As an example, they'll never be able to own their own American home or in a business in America because they're criminals, and they shouldn't. But the thing that gets me is that 31%, though, said it is somewhat attainable, that the American dream, for most people will be able to attain some aspect of the American dream. Maybe you don't get to own your own home, but you are able to attain wealth or have financial stability, that you'll be able to have freedom, which freedom is not tied to anything else. In the United States, you are free because you're an American citizen. And again, that would only be somewhat true because if you're an illegal alien, you're not free because you're a criminal. You've invaded the United States. So this makes sense. But I find it also troubling that 25% say that it is somewhat unattainable, that the majority of people cannot attain the American dream. And that's troubling at 25%. 1 in 4 are saying, no, you can't get that. Why? Are they illegal aliens? Let's go further. For me personally, the poll asks, how attainable do you think the American dream is? I think it's very attainable. And in looking at the poll, 39% agree with me. Yes, it's very attainable. You can get the American dream. If you want to buy a home, you can do so. You want to buy property, you can do so. Do you want to build a business? You can do so. Will it work? Maybe, maybe not, but you can start that business and you can attempt to grow that business. That's on you. You can have financial stability. You can make investments and you can grow your wealth. These are things that are easily attainable. You have, by birth, as an American citizen, freedom. As a naturalized citizen, you gain freedom. That is an absolute. So the things that I believe make the American dream and that many others believe are big major components of the American dream are attainable. And 39% would agree. And 33% would say it's somewhat attainable. Maybe you don't get that house. Maybe that business fails. These things happen. So you won't get everything, but you can get some things. You still can get education. You still have freedom. You still have the ability to try. I can live with that. Only 14% believe it is unattainable for them to be able to get the American dream. Only 14% say it's somewhat unattainable, that they won't get everything, and 13% believe it's almost impossible. Again, how many of those are illegal aliens? I don't know. Poll goes on to say, in your opinion, is the American dream something people should aspire to achieve or not? 73% say that the American dream is something to achieve, or something to reach for, which matches what we see over and over again. 71% of Republicans in 2018 had a positive view of capitalism, a key component of America and the American dream, where only 47% of Democrats believed that. Looking at more recently, in 2019, 88% of Republicans, 66% of independents believe that the American dream is achievable, as opposed to only 60% of Democrats. Looking most recently, in 2021, 65% of Democrats believe socialism is the answer, only 14% of Republicans, while 72% of Republicans and 52% of Democrats believe that the answer is and have a positive image of capitalism. When we look at the poll, 73%. Almost everyone agrees that reaching for the ability to be able to own your own home, to have freedom, to have success, to be able to have children, to be able to grow wealth, to be financially stable, to have an education, these are all things that are worth reaching for. These are things that can improve and are valuable to a life. I can't imagine what the 15% who disagree, I don't understand what they're disagreeing about. What of the things that we have discussed so far in this video, what is there not to want to have? How about those who want to have a choice in their LGBTQ plus whatever relationships that you can do in America? That is part and parcel of the freedom of America that you don't get in other parts of the world. Look at the Uyghurs in China, persecuted, being killed, the genocide there, the genocide in the Sudan, the genocide that happens in the Middle East. Is that what they are preferring? It's possible. I don't know. Going on, the poll asks, and what would you say to the American dream is relevant today, or is it outdated? And the answer from the YouGov poll, 63% 33% think that that's a modern, great idea. It matters today. It is relevant. 34% think that that's an old-fashioned idea. And I have to ask you, to those 34% who answered the poll, what do they think is relevant today? Because the answer, it seems, is socialism. Socialism is the relevant answer and has been since 2018, if not before, among the youth of America, among Democrats, amongst progressives, and the Democratic Socialists of America, especially the Ithaca chapter that believes in violence, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Cori Bush, Anna Presley. Yeah, they're the face of that difference. What's the difference? Socialism. They believe that's relevant because that's what's in social media. That's what's being promoted on a regular basis. Be a socialist. Socialism. It's a good thing. Except it doesn't give you any of the things that the American dream is giving you and that this poll repeatedly identifies as being the most valuable things, not just for Americans, but for people taking the poll. Do you think the American dream is any more or less attainable today than it was for prior generations? Now, I would say, no, it's about the same. If you're an American citizen, you always have had the chance to buy property. You have had the chance to have a family, to be able to, well, today, maybe a little bit more likely to have the LGBTQ plus whatever, so on, relationship you want to have, although people have had them back in the 50s, back in the 1800s, they existed. They have more protections today, and we see a large growth of that with media imploring us, with many Democrats telling us that we must have that we must teach children, and we must, and some would say, groom children to become more LGBTQ plus and so on. But that's something that we have, and we have, to some extent, always had it. So I would say it's about the same. Now, according to the poll, only 19% of people agree with me with that. 33%, again, some reason it's put on the bottom. 33% say it is much less attainable today than it was for prior generations, which doesn't really make sense to me when I hear that. It is less likely for LGBTQ plus AIP, whatever, to be able to have a family today than they had in the past. That doesn't make any sense. That it is harder today to buy property than it was in the past, that's not accurate. Not by data, not by action. That's not true. Is it easier today to get more education, being able to remote learn for your college degree, to take classes remotely? We've made it easier to get more education, to get more influence. So I don't see how they say it's less attainable today than it was for prior generations. How do they view that? And then I think, and I come up with the answer. It's not just socialism. It's critical race theory. It's intersectionality. It's gender identity politics. People are being told, taking this poll, many of the youth are being told in our schools that they don't have a fair shake, that there's more racism today than there was in the 1950s. They're being told that they're being more persecuted today than they were at any time previously in history. They're being told that America is more evil today than any nation ever in the history of mankind. And these are falsehoods. This isn't true. But people are being told that every day. Look at your social media. Look at how the media applauded and loved President Obama as he went around the world and apologized for the greatness of America and demonize President Trump for saying that America is great and there is nothing to apologize for. It doesn't matter if you like President Trump or not. That's not what I'm talking about. I don't care if you like his tweets or not. That's not important. We're talking about the ideology, their ideal of America. That difference is stark, and that difference is part of why we're seeing people in the poll that are saying to themselves, well, in the past, prior generations had it easier, even though we have more technology, more education, higher quality of life, better business standards, more income. We have more of everything today than we have ever had before. And we have more people sensitive to and working on racial tensions, sexual preferences. There's more today than ever before in the world, in any other nation in the world. And yet they're going to say it's easier in the past. I think that tells us a lot about the people who are taking the poll. I think it tells us a lot about our education system and how it is perverting the reality that exists at this moment. Now, you can tell me, Mike, you don't agree. And there are people who have taken this poll and they do not agree. Do you think achieving the American dream equates to a happy life? 32% of the people who took the poll said yes. 43% who took the poll said it depends. And I'm wondering what you're thinking of because, well, wouldn't you be happy in life? And I'm going off of the results of the poll itself. Let's take away all the material things, to have freedom, to have an equal opportunity, to have an education, to have success, to have the love of those that you wish to love. Aren't those all things that are important? Don't they bring happiness? Doesn't that bring happiness? And these are things that are defined by the American dream. And that is something that is attainable. And people are saying that that wouldn't make them happy. That 43% are saying they're not sure if that would make them happy. What would make you happy? I don't understand. But that's maybe my failure. Maybe you can tell me why in the descriptions and in the comments. And I believe this was just about the last question here. Which of the following do you think is the most important in getting ahead in the United States? Now, this is not an American dream question. This is an entirely different question. And we should note that they have switched their modus in this question, in this poll, to be able to now say, what do you think is most to get ahead in America? Which is not the same thing as to get the American dream. Different question, not the same criteria. And they're doing that for a reason I don't know, but that's somewhat nefarious. They're twisting the poll. So their answer, they say, which of the following is the most important in getting ahead in the USA? I said work ethic, because with a good work ethic, you can get past everything else. You may not be the smartest person in the world. You don't have to have a PhD, but if you have a strong work ethic, you can gain wealth. You can still buy a home. You can build a business. You can have the loves of your life and to support them as you build a family. You can do that with a strong work ethic. So that's why I said that, and 47%, the majority, agreed with me on that. Now again, for some reason, the answers are out of order. Rather than showing us highest to lowest or lowest to highest, they start mixing it up. I'm not sure why. And then luck had 4%. People believe it's only 4% will allow you to get ahead in America because luck is transcendental. It's not something that you have any control over. And in America, you do have control. That's what freedom gives you. For good or for ill, you have the choice. 36%, the family and class you are born into, which I find to be interesting since America is a classless society. Class is not a factor in America. So again, but that's my interpretation of this. You may say, well, no. If I gain wealth, if I'm born into wealth, I could be like Paris Hilton and you'll be able to be rich forever. Well, in the case of Paris Hilton, they have stupid amounts of money. Most people wouldn't have that opportunity, but I can see your point. Fair enough. The next most significant answer would be education and intellect, which I think is a component of, can be a component of work ethic, but also something separate of that. And yes, that can also help. And they ask a final question here. Do you agree with the following statement? The American dream is dead. Now, again, the poll has now switched itself again. Dead, not that it is just dying, not that it is unattainable, but now that it is dead. There is a subliminal component of this poll, and it is negative. It is not pro-American. And the answers are 55% said no. The American dream is not dead. It may be difficult. It may require hard work. You may or may not be able to get access to all of it, but it exists. It is there, and it is possible. Regardless of your class, regardless of your family, regardless of your starting status, you can attain this. And 55% of those who took this poll, even those who found negative aspects to this poll, said the American dream is not dead. 35% said, yeah, it's dead. And I find that interesting, that 35% say the American dream is dead. And that would equate in poll after poll, result after result, with the number of Democrats that believe socialism is the answer to America and its future. Maybe you disagree with me. I think this is a very telling poll. I think what they're saying directly and what they are saying indirectly is important. And I think having context to know that the growth of socialism in America amongst our youth is having a significant impact on their belief in the American dream. I think it's very telling, especially as we are listening to the latest Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, as she is being promoted based on the color of her skin and the fact that she is a woman, her gender, and she is being promoted because of her political activism, things that have nothing to do with the Supreme Court, things that have nothing to do with the American dream, things that have nothing to do with the American system and Constitution. I think there's a reason why this poll came out today and not at some other time. But what do you think about the poll? Having been put in context, looking at the historical data and now today, tell me, what do you think about the American dream? We look forward to hearing your answer, and we look forward to seeing you every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in our live stream. We hope you'll join us.